Hello there, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, the internet, and the like, and welcome back to Team Fortress 2. And it feels really good to be back to making at least one gameplay commentary, because recently I just had my wisdom teeth removed, and that oral surgery process has led to a bit of an interesting recovery. Basically, what happened after I had the actual surgery was I slept in most of the first day. That screwed up my sleeping schedule at night, but now I'm back to normal, and for the most part, it's just been a series of steps in, little bits of recovery at a time, and I really cannot eat very much, which is quite unfortunate, because I do miss eating, and some people would say that fasting or doing abstinence does wonders for your body, and I will say that it does, but all the same, I still heavily miss food, and I also want to speak about how beautiful this heavy smile is. Just look at that right there. I'm pretty sure anyone could be jealous of having a smile like that, but unfortunately that's not going to be the topic of this video. Instead, we have something more interesting to cover, which is to talk about the Scout. When I first started playing Team Fortress 2 back in 2011, I had a bit of an interesting choice. I could either get a sense of what kind of game I was playing and stick to a class that was definitely a lot easier, or I could pick Scout. And naturally, I picked the latter, because I'm a bit of an impatient person when it comes to video games, and I just want to commute across a map really quickly, and the Scout just fits that role for me pretty essentially well. You could argue that the Soldier and the Demoman also have access to different areas of the map that Scouts normally cannot reach, and they also are able to just cover so much ground at the cost of their own health. But that being the case, because it is at the cost of their own health, I prefer running over rocket jumping at some points. So, I sort of decided to go back to playing Scout today, for no real particular reason. I just wanted to play some Scout. He's kind of been sitting on the back burner for quite some time. He used to be my main class, but eventually I started to get a bit more diverse in my selection of class styles, and I sort of devoted my attention to Demoman and Engineer, Soldier, and Medic when I had to play as the team's physician. But overall, I have not really given Scout much of a chance. So I decided to try playing just as a scout with a stock loadout, and just see how well I could do with that. And as it turns out, I can do somewhat well. I'd say I'm a bit of a semi-average to average scout in terms of the skill scale levels. I definitely do need a bit more practice with the scouter gun, because I do know how to land bait shots, but sometimes it's just a lot more difficult than it seems. And that being the case, playing as the Scout sort of gives you an idea of, one, how much of a glass cannon he is, and two, how handy he could be on the battlefield. So for anyone who could possibly be looking up that term glass cannon right now, I'll explain it to you immediately. A glass cannon is someone who has access to a high amount of firepower or has a lot of damage output at the risk of being one of the most fragile characters of all time. And the Scout is sitting amongst the three other classes, which are definitely the most vulnerable in Team Fortress 2, the others being the Engineer, the Sniper, and the Spy. The Scout, being the fastest class, is definitely open to a lot more risks, but at the same time is able to escape from a lot of hefty situations, and this is pretty much why I love playing as the Scout, because he is just so fast, and you're able to move away from battles that you'd rather not fight at all. It's true you can't escape from all of them, but at the least, you have your speed there to ensure you that you can always approach the battle from a different manner. Scout has pretty much always been a flanking class, because you cannot go for direct assaults. Those sorts of things just don't work considering your health cap, and I definitely not recommend it at all if you're ever going to pick up this class and play it for a while. So I'm using the stock loadout today, and I've talked more about the stock loadout before, how one thing that I'd rather not mention is how much I really disliked using the pistol as a Scout, but as it turns out, after giving it another chance, playing with it for a while more, it's given me an insight of how much that extra firepower can mean to you. Not just on a gameplay style level, but almost on a mentality level, because Normally, I would just play with the Mad Milk, but having this extra firepower has sort of psychologically told me that as long as I run out of scattergun ammunition, if I'm not careful enough with my shots, I can always run over, switch to the pistol, and have that extra bit of firepower I need to finish off my target. And sometimes that works, other times I just reload my scattergun, plant one more shot, and then go on my merry way, which can also work out. But having the pistol there is really good for not just consecutive damage against sentry guns, but also for finishing off opponents. It's probably not going to get you out of a situation like being lit on fire, but at the least, I have a little bit of extra safety guaranteed, in just a bit of a different light. And I'm also using just the regular old festive holy mackerel. It's not exactly a bat, but it does the exact same things as the bat would do. I don't really use melee weapons as a scout because the crit chance, even on a random crit server, is just absurd with the scout, and I feel as though there is pretty much no skill involved. It might be handy in some people's eyes, but I prefer to output damage with an actual gun. So most of the time I neglect to use it, and I just whip it out to taunt, and I think that's all that needs to be said. If you're going to be taunting as a scout, then you want to be careful because you're probably going to die if you do it in the middle of a battlefield. I'm starting to lose my Canadian accent. I'm starting to talk like some kind of weirdo. I apologize for this. So the map choice of today, I am playing on Barn Blitz, which I don't exactly know why I chose this map in particular. I think I just wanted to run in and play as a scout for the sake of that alone, not really focusing on what kind of map it would be and how dangerous it would be to my health. And Barn Blitz is not really the first thing that comes to mind when I think of playing Scout, because there are a lot of tight corridors and choke points that the Scout is just really open to a lot of different dangers. For the most part, you do still have access to mobility, like jumping over to this ledge is definitely one of the best things you can do, but unfortunately, you don't get that many opportunities when the entire team is composed of a lot of powerful classes like soldiers and demomen and heavies. It turns out that during this gameplay, the other team really didn't have that much of a composition. I think it sort of bounced back and forth between what kind of classes they were throwing at us, and we had a pretty solid defense overall, so I can't really complain about that. But this area in particular, just before the second point, is not the best place to be when you're playing as the Scooty, because if you're just running into a crits Demoman push, then there's pretty much no way you're getting out of that alive. The Scout cannot get out of dangerous situations when there's just multiple people, all with like a medic attached to them at once. Just choke points in general are never places that a scout should hang out with to begin with. It's just not your territory. You should probably get out of there and pick a different place to fight your battles. So normally I'd prefer if the other team had capped the second point and then left us with that giant open area towards our final barn. That's normally where I like to play scout on this map if I had to choose a place where I preferred to play as. But right here, thankfully, this was the exception. We had a pretty solid defense, as I said earlier. Lots of engineers running around building sentries in this barn to make sure that none of the blue team would be able to pass, and I think the blue team stopped using medics a while ago. So it gives me lots of free reign and opportunity to run around and flank different areas of the map, as many as I can physically. And there's also no engineers on the other team, which is a huge benefit for Scout, because engineer is, for the most part, the exact opponent, like the counter to Scout. If there are engineers on the other team, even just a mini sentry is going to ruin your life, and you're probably not going to be able to make much progress if you're going to be flanking the enemy team. But my style of Scout right here, I do like to sort of make these grand rounds around our base to make sure that there isn't a suspicious activity going on. Excuse me while I stumble over my words for a minute. And just hanging out in this balcony right here is good enough because it lets me see what kind of enemies are approaching. It's not really a good idea to go up over that hill to where the enemies would have the higher ground, but picking this area of the barn is a great way to flank other classes, and I think the final kill I get in this gameplay is on this soldier who does a faceplant against that rooftop. And now we've successfully managed to push the enemy team back, so one of the engineers gets the idea to move his sentry over. It's pretty good if you decide to run back and forth to make sure, again, there isn't a suspicious activity or any spies doing anything that might seem out of place or faux pas. And right now the gameplay is coming down to a close, so I hope you did enjoy this quick little scout gameplay that I decided to pump out for you, and I hope to get back to making more videos really soon as I finish recovering from that oral surgery. And yeah, that's gonna be it, so thank you guys very much for watching, have a great day or evening, and I guess I will see you in the next video.